The day I received my husband's diagnosis report, he suddenly installed a surveillance camera in our master bedroom. That night, I overheard his hushed yet fervent promise to the woman on the other end of the line. I won't touch her again. We sent you the login credentials for the surveillance feed. You can check anytime. I made up my mind. From now on I'll stay faithful to you. Watching his flushed face, brimming with conviction, I quietly fed his diagnosis report into the shredder. If he was so determined to remain faithful to another woman for love, well then, he might as well stay faithful forever. When I saw the letters S on my husband Liam Martin's diagnosis report, my knees nearly gave out. 3 months ago, Liam had fallen while mountain climbing and was hospitalized. Wanting peace of mind, I had asked the doctors to run a full examination. I never expected the results to turn out like this. There is currently no cure for ALS. Medication can slow its progression, but the outcome is irreversible. The doctor looked at me with a sympathetic gaze. Liam was barely in his early 30s, handsome, driven, and at the peak of his career. As a renowned divorce attorney, he was sharp, decisive, and ruthlessly logical, an elite among elites. His personal life was disciplined and orderly, filled with fitness routines, mountain hikes, and an almost obsessive attention to quality living. I couldn't even begin to imagine what would become of a man like him. Someone so powerful, so in control, when the disease finally robbed him of his ability to care for himself. I sat on a bench by the street watching the endless stream of people passing by. For a long time I didn't move. Then slowly, I got up. I had made up my mind. We were husband and wife. That meant we would face this together. No matter how he changed in the future, I would stand by him, with our son. By the time I got home, the sky was dark. Ben was quietly playing chess in his room. At just 7 years old, he had already reached an ELO rating of 1700, earning him the title of prodigy in a television interview. Have you had dinner? I adjusted my emotions and asked gently. Yes. Miss Lucy made me pasta. He didn't even look up, his gaze fixed on the chessboard. Where's your dad? I asked patiently. Out running. Ben was reserved by nature, his words always concise and to the point. 2 hours later, I was leaning against the bed, debating whether to tell Liam about his diagnosis when he finally returned. Dressed in black workout gear, he looked as imposing and put together as ever. I frowned in concern. It's freezing outside. Why aren't you dressed warmer? The doctor had warned me earlier, as weakens the muscles, reducing heat production. Exposure to cold could accelerate the disease's progression. Liam remained expressionless. His voice was calm. You don't need to worry about me. With that, he opened the box in his hand and pulled out a surveillance camera, adjusting its position on the cabinet opposite our bed. The lens was aimed directly at us. I hesitated. Why are you installing a camera all of a sudden? Liam responded casually. There have been some break-ins in the area. I figured security footage would help. But aren't you worried about privacy leaks? I asked hesitantly. He had always been fiercely protective of his privacy. He glanced at me and let out a low chuckle. Privacy? Who would even be interested in yours? A mix of emotions welled up inside me, but I chose not to argue. That night, he lay down with his back to me, keeping a deliberate distance, his posture radiating exhaustion and complete disinterest in conversation. I sighed inwardly. He had just wrapped up a high-profile celebrity divorce case. The stress must have been suffocating. Maybe he just needed some time to decompress. But deep into the night, I suddenly jolted awake, a lingering unease gnawing at me. The space beside me was empty. Liam was gone. Panic rose in my chest as I got up and searched for him. Then I found him. He was standing on the balcony, clad in only a thin sleep shirt, his figure stark against the cold night air. He was on the phone. I instinctively grabbed a coat and stepped forward, until his hushed voice made me freeze in place. You have to trust me. I won't touch her again. A chill seeped into my bones. We sent you the login and password for the surveillance camera. You can check anytime you want. I've made up my mind. From now on I'll stay faithful to you. Through the glass door I stared at Liam, my mind blank. His usual cold and distant expression was gone. Instead, his face was flushed, filled with raw emotion. As I listened to his fervent vow, a strange realization began to settle in. For the first time I felt as if I no longer knew the man I had married. Liam had always had a high sex drive. Disciplined and restrained by day, but relentless in his demands at night. In recent years, as the pressure on him mounted, he became increasingly meticulous, measured in his words, flawless in his actions. It was as if he had locked himself into an airtight shell. The only time he seemed even remotely human was in the quiet heat of our nights together, when his breath came fast and ragged against my ear. Only then did I catch glimpses of the boy he used to be, the one who blushed when he first looked at me. The metinculation. He was the one who pursued me. The aloof and self-assured young man had looked at me with nothing but burning intensity, his voice unsteady whenever he spoke my name. I fell for him fast. Later I stayed on campus and became a psychology professor. He started as a salaried attorney and worked his way up to partner at his firm, becoming a top divorce lawyer with an annual income in the millions. In many ways, we were alike, steady in our emotions, logical, practical, always in control. We valued a refined life, believed in working toward our goals, and kept our world neatly structured. I had a stable, respectable job that allowed me to balance work and family. He thrived in his career, dominating his field. After 8 years of marriage, we were a model couple, polite, supportive, accomplished. We lived in a mansion, raised a son who was hailed as a child prodigy. To outsiders, we had a life worth envying. But 6 months ago, something changed. Liam had always had a strict nighttime routine. He would go for a run at 8, return by 9, shower, and spend 30 minutes with the family, never deviating from the schedule. Then suddenly he started leaving at 7 and coming back at 10. He would arrive home exhausted, take a shower, and go straight to bed, quietly eliminating family time altogether. I asked why his runs were taking longer. His lips pressed into a thin line before he replied, voice neutral. The cases have been complicated. I think better when I'm outside. Mental labor could be just as exhausting as physical exertion. I understood. Then, at some point, he lost interest in sex. I thought it was the stress. Afraid of bruising his pride, I never mentioned it, but I worried. I worried so much that when he fell and was hospitalized, I urged him to take time off to recover, and insisted the doctors run a full medical exam. But now, looking back, it seems I had been asking the wrong questions all along. I lay back in bed, staring up at the ceiling, my eyes wide open in the dark. His words just now felt foreign. His expression had seemed even more unfamiliar. And yet, after enduring 2 crushing blows in a single day, I found that curiosity, overwhelming, relentless, had drowned out the sorrow and anger I should have felt. I needed to know. Who is she? What kind of woman could unravel Liam, the cold, logical, self-possessed Liam I had known for years, and reduce him to such an unguarded, reckless mess? I wasn't the type to hesitate. I would find out. That night, I waited until Liam was deep asleep before carefully slipping his phone from his grasp. I scrolled through his call history and found the number he had dialed at midnight. Something clicked in my mind. I had seen this number before. 3 months ago, when Liam fell during his mountain climb and was hospitalized, I had asked the police for the contact information of the person who found him and called for help. I had wanted to express my gratitude. The number they gave me was this one. I have an excellent memory, especially for numbers. There was no mistake. Back then, I had called the number right in front of the officer. A woman answered. Her voice was gentle, kind, though it carried the weight of age. She had politely declined to meet, saying there was no need for gratitude, that anyone would have done the same. After I hung up, the officer had chuckled. Most people would at least accept a thank you gift. But not her. I had asked why. The officer told me he recognized her from a local news feature. She had once been honored as the strongest and most beautiful woman. She has had a tough life. On her wedding day, her husband suffered a massive stroke and was left completely paralyzed. He had a 10-year-old son from his previous marriage, and she took care of them both, feeding, bathing, changing diapers for 10 years. Never once did she leave him. After her husband passed away last year, life finally started looking up for her. Now she runs a little hot dog stand near Central Park. A woman with morals like hers would never accept your money. I had nodded then, touched by the story. My husband was lucky to have met her, I had said. But now, sitting alone in the dead of night, Staring at Liam's phone, I wasn't so sure. A strange feeling churned in my stomach. I opened his photo album. Liam had either been too confident or too trusting. He hadn't bothered to hide anything. My screen was instantly flooded with photos. Of her. The same woman. A small, cozy hot dog stand under a sky full of stars, bathed in the warm glow of a single lamp. A woman with soft, kind features, her smile bright and genuine. In some pictures she was handing out food, in others she was passing a cup of coffee to a customer. In every shot there was a sense of warmth, of quiet, simple happiness. Hundreds of photos. In them she went from wearing light summer dresses to thick winter coats. A timeline spanning half a year. 3 days later I went to the park and sat down in front of the stand labeled Margaret's Hot Dogs. I watched the woman from a distance. She was crouched near a flower bed, speaking softly to a stray kitten. 2 men stood in front of her stand chuckling. "Margaret, you care more about these strays than making money." She quickly straightened, her voice full of quiet apology. "I am so sorry. I just felt bad for them and got a little carried away. I didn't see you there." One of the men waved her off with a grin. "You're too kind. These animals see you as their safe haven. They know you'll always feed them. It's heartwarming, really." After they left, I walked up. "Hi, I'd like a coffee and a hot dog, please." Margaret nodded with a warm smile and began preparing my order. I studied her closely. She looked to be in her mid-30s. Fine lines crept from the corners of her eyes, but they didn't make her seem old, just gentle. She had delicate features. A quiet elegance about her. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, wisps escaping to frame her face. "Sweetheart, it is your first time here," she said as she handed me the cup. "This coffee is on me. If you like it, I hope you'll come back." I took my hot dog and sat on a nearby bench, slowly taking bites as my mind twisted around a single question. A woman like Margaret, with a story like hers, with a heart like hers, would she be the kind of person to come between a husband and wife? Would she? Margaret's figure shifted, and before I realized it, she had walked over and sat beside me. I froze for a brief moment. She smiled gently, her bright eyes meeting mine. "You must be Mr. Martin's wife." I set my spoon down and looked at her steadily. "So you know who I am?" Her lips curved slightly. "Yes. I saw your photo on Mr. Martin's phone before. The moment I saw you, I recognized you." My brows furrowed as realization struck. Liam's old phone wallpaper used to be a picture of me and our son. He had changed it to a landscape photo, 6 months ago. Margaret lowered her gaze, falling silent for a few seconds before speaking in a calm, warm voice. "I know why you're here. You must think there's something between me and Mr. Martin." I said nothing. She lifted her eyes, her expression sincere and kind. "Sweetheart, there is nothing inappropriate between us. The only interaction we ever had is him stopping by after his runs to buy a cup of coffee." A slight crease formed between her brows as if something troubled her. Over time I noticed he often looked exhausted, withdrawn, like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. So I spoke to him a few times just to offer a little comfort. But I think he must have misunderstood my intentions. He started seeking me out more, saying things that didn't really make sense. I found it amusing, honestly. Not just because he has a family, but because, let's be realistic, someone like him, falling for someone like me, is ridiculous. I told him it was just a passing impulse, but he wouldn't listen. He only became more persistent, even calling me sometimes when I didn't want to talk. To be honest, I was thinking of reaching out to you myself. Mr. Martin is clearly overwhelmed with stress. Maybe as his wife, you can help him. I stared ahead, my emotions tangled in a way I couldn't quite define. After a long pause, I finally spoke. "So you re-saying all of this was just Liam's one-sided obsession? That you've been rejecting him all along?" Margaret sighed quietly and gave a slow nod. I lifted my gaze, watching her carefully. "Then was installing a surveillance camera in my bedroom, giving you access to monitor my private life. Also just his impulsive decision, one you had no part in?" Margaret stiffened for a fraction of a second before quickly responding. "I already scolded him for that. It was completely out of line." I pressed on, my voice turning colder. "And what about the hiking trip? The time he fell because he was carrying you? You told him your foot hurt and he offered to help. Was that also against your will? Her pupils widened. She shot to her feet. Hiking? I don't know what you talking about. Kept my gaze steady. Strange. I even called to thank you back then. Did you forget so soon? Just then a customer called out. 1 hot dog and a coffee, please. Margaret pursed her lips, hurried back to the stand and started preparing the order. Her hands, however, moved stiffly, unnaturally. Then a loud crash. The hot dog tray flipped, sending food scattering across the ground. A cup of steaming coffee spilled everywhere. Some of it landed on Margaret. She gasped in pain, her eyes instantly welling up. The customer and I both stepped forward, checking on her. Looking at the mess before me, I let out a slow breath. I bought an ice pack to help her with the burn, then turned to leave. But just as I took a step, I am sorry. I stopped. Turning back, I saw Margaret standing there, eyes red, her voice trembling with quiet sobs. I am sorry, she repeated, her hands clutching the counter. I did keep the truth from you. That day I was upset about my stepson getting into a fight. Liam happened to be there and said a hike might help clear my mind, so I agreed. Then he fell. I panicked, called for an ambulance, but I didn't dare meet you. I was afraid you'd misunderstand our relationship. Her eyes were rimmed with red, tears slipping down her cheeks one after another. On her hand, the skin was reddened from the coffee burn, making her look even more pitiful. Laura, what the hell are you doing? A furious voice cut through the air behind me. I turned. Liam. He was running toward us, his face stormy with rage. For a moment I just stared. It had been a long time since I'd seen such intense emotion on his face. He was wearing a navy blue suit, the one he only wore for critical negotiations, which meant he had left an important work engagement just to come here. And yet, when I had been in a car accident and called him, he had insisted on finishing his meeting before coming to the hospital. Liam swept his gaze over the mess, then to Margaret, who was still sniffling softly. His lips pressed into a tight line as he took slow, deliberate steps toward her. He stood before her, looking down at her small, fragile form. Then, without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms. Are you okay? His voice was low, urgent. Did she hurt you? Margaret buried her face against his chest and broke into loud, heart-wrenching sobs. Liam shut his eyes briefly as if pained. Then, in the gentlest voice I'd heard from him in years, he murmured, Don't cry, Margaret. Please don't cry. Remember what you always say, that if you just keep going, everything will get better. Your suffering is over now. It is completely over. There is nothing left in this world that should ever make you shed another tear. Throughout his entire speech, Liam never once looked at me. I pulled out my phone and snapped several photos. The sharp click of the shutter cut through the tense air. Margaret instantly pulled away from Liam's embrace, stepping back in a rush. Her face twisted in regret and panic, as if she had only just realized what she had done. Her wide, uneasy eyes darted toward me as she stammered. I forgot, I didn't mean to, she trailed off, because I was simply watching her, expressionless. You don't need to say a word, or I'll do the talking. Liam's deep voice cut through the air, stopping her cold. He turned to me and in an instant the anger, the tenderness, all of it disappeared. His features smoothed into the composed, authoritative mask of the formidable lawyer he was. His gaze was sharp, commanding. Laura, if you have something to say it at home. This park is near your university, and there are plenty of people around. Making a scene here won't do you any favors. Besides, his eyes flicked to the mess on the ground before returning to mine. Do you really find it amusing to bully a woman who has no one? I stared at him coldly, my voice eerily calm. Oh, so you do realize there are plenty of people watching. Then tell me, as my husband, how thrilling do you find it to be holding another woman, a widow, like that in public? Liam's expression tightened, the fire in his eyes flickering with something close to shock. He had never seen me like this before. I had always been composed, graceful, rational, so measured in my words and actions that he had come to believe there was no storm I couldn't weather with quiet dignity. But even I had never seen this side of myself before. I turned away from him and looked at Margaret, who had been quietly gathering the fallen items from the ground. Margaret, do you love my husband? She flinched, her hands trembling. She didn't answer. After a few long seconds she slowly lifted her chin, her voice ringing out louder than before. Enough. Just stop arguing. It wasn't her, it was me. I spilled the coffee on myself, okay? Can we just leave it at that? Her eyes, red with unshed tears, flickered toward Liam with a look of quiet grievance. Mr. Martin, please take your wife and leave. Don't interfere with my business. And from now on I don't want your business either. Please don't come back. People were beginning to gather. Customers. Bystanders. What is going on? Why is everything such a mess? Margaret, is someone bothering you? Who is it? If someone is messing with Margaret, they've got a problem with all of us. Hostile stares turned in my direction. Liam's expression darkened as he grabbed my wrist, dragging me toward the parking lot. I tried to shake him off, but his grip was firm, unrelenting. I had no choice but to follow his pace. As we walked, a group of students passed by, a few of them carrying basketballs. One of them recognized me and waved with a bright, cheerful smile. Mrs. Martin, hello. I smiled back, nodding politely. Hello. I yanked my hand free as soon as we reached the parking lot and strode toward my car without a word. The trees blurred past my windows as I drove down the highway. And finally, the tears I had been holding back spilled over. I gave myself 30 minutes. 30 minutes to be angry, to grieve, to accept, to compose myself. Then I turned the wheel and headed for the bank. Liam and I had a joint family account. All our salaries, bonuses, and investment returns were deposited there. When we first opened it, he had smiled and said, "You always complain that I don't express love enough. From now on, this account is yours to manage. My only job is to keep putting money in. Consider it my way of making sure you and Ben are always taken care of. Does that count as love?" Over the years, the balance had accumulated to over $8 million. But when I arrived at the bank, the teller frowned in confusion. "This account has been frozen due to a loan default. You weren't aware." A chill spread through my limbs. "When did this happen?" I asked slowly. 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Liam had just been discharged from the hospital. I had been bedridden with a high fever for a full week after exhausting myself taking care of him. So while I had been delirious with fever, he had been busy making his first move, securing his advantage for the impending divorce. I let out a sharp laugh, the irony almost absurd. On the drive here, I had actually regretted being too impulsive at the park, thinking I should have planned my retreat before showing my hand. But it turned out he had already been plotting against me long before I ever realized there was a battle to fight. When a man's heart changes, his cruelty knows no bounds. By the time I got home, night had fully settled in. Liam was sitting on the couch in his loungewear, sipping coffee, his expression as calm as ever. He glanced at me, then spoke. "I sent Ben to my mother. Let us settle this tonight." I sat down, watching him in silence. He exhaled slowly before continuing. "I was planning to wait a little longer before bringing this up. After all, despite everything, I still wanted you and Ben to enjoy this life for a while longer. But since you decided to make a scene today, I suppose there is no point in delaying anymore." Then, without a flicker of hesitation, he said, "Laura, I've fallen in love with someone else. Let us get a divorce." I was perfectly calm. I even smiled a little. "Liam, can you tell me, what is it about her that made you throw away 10 years of marriage? What made you betray your wife and son?" He frowned slightly. "If you insist on an explanation." After a brief pause, his voice softened into something almost wistful, almost reverent. "For years my job has forced me to witness the ugliest sides of marriage. I lost all faith in love, in relationships. But when I met her, I realized there are still people in this world who love purely, who give everything simply because they believe in it. She spent the best years of her life caring for a man who was never even truly hers. She gave up her youth, her dreams, out of nothing but love and duty. She made me realize how empty and suffocating my life had become. You ask me why I love her? He asked myself the same thing 1,000 times. Because she is kind. Because she is strong. Because life tried to break her but she fought back. Because on every cold night she handed me a cup of coffee. His voice trembled slightly, his expression raw with emotion, so much so that he seemed moved by his own words. The room fell silent. Then after a long moment, I let out a quiet, mirthless laugh. So this is your justification for betrayal. His jaw tightened and his warmth vanished in an instant. His tone turned cold. Laura, you're a self-serving perfectionist. You could never understand a love like this. I nodded. Fine. Then let's make it simple. Walk away with nothing and I'll agree to the divorce. He let out a derisive laugh. You do realize there's no such thing as walking away with nothing in divorce law, right? And besides, Margaret and I haven't even crossed any lines. I'm not legally at fault here. I stared at him. Not speaking. Just taking in the stranger sitting in front of me. Could someone really change so completely? Could love turn to indifference so thoroughly that it was as if they had swapped souls overnight? Liam must have guessed what I was thinking because his brows drew together slightly. Don't look at me like that. Feelings fade. Divorce is a natural outcome. When I was lying on that mountain waiting for rescue, I realized I don't want to waste my life being afraid to love. Even if it means being hated, even if it means facing judgment, I want to live for myself for once. Laura, don't forget what I do for a living. I have plenty of ways to make this happen. The only question is whether I choose to use them on you. A low chuckle escaped me. Not use them on me? Haven't you already? Freezing the accounts, making sure I have nothing to my name. How poetic, really. What a noble and pure love story you two have. Liam mit my geich. Utterly unfazed. So you checked the account. That is fine. It's just a precaution, to keep things from getting messy. Have already drafted the divorce agreement. The money and Ben stay with me. You get the house, but the remaining mortgage is yours to pay off. Considering our financial contributions, I say this is more than fair. Before he could finish, I picked up the glass on the table and hurled it to the floor. It shattered on impact. You're insane. Liam's face twisted in fury as he stared at the shattered glass on the floor. Without another word, he grabbed his car keys and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sat down slowly, my hands steady as I poured myself a cup of coffee. In just 3 days my life had been turned upside down. And I was becoming someone I no longer recognized. Walking out of the bank earlier, I had come to a grim realization. Liam, the man I had once trusted, had finally turned the very legal tactics he had mastered in countless divorce cases against me. I was probably worse off than most women in my situation. Not only had I been betrayed, but I had been betrayed by a man who was a professional at it. Years of ruthless courtroom battles had trained him to strip emotions away, to act with cold, calculated efficiency. If I wasted any more time drowning in pain and sorrow, I would be handing him my own destruction on a silver platter. I had to play this game by his rules. Which was why, before coming home, I had already gone to his mother's house and taken Ben. I had made sure he was safely placed with a trusted friend. Now I sat in silence, drinking cup after cup of tea. Outside, the moon had risen at some point, hanging quietly in the night sky. After a long while, I stood up and walked into the bedroom. I reached for the medical report. My phone vibrated. Liam had sent me a photo. In the image, he was lying with his eyes closed, resting his head on a woman's lap. Their fingers were tightly intertwined. Beneath the picture was a message. Since you never cherished him, I have no reason to feel guilty anymore. It was your actions that finally gave me the courage to say yes to him. It was both a declaration and a taunt. A woman who had survived the worst life had to offer, someone who had clawed her way out of despair, would never be the naive, pure-hearted soul Liam believed her to be. She had deliberately spilled that coffee. She had deliberately called out to me as I was leaving. And she had deliberately made sure Liam arrived in time to see it all. Liam was sharp enough to navigate legal loopholes, but he was blind when it came to reading people. Men are pathetic. I whispered to myself as I fed the diagnosis report into the shredder. As the last piece was torn apart, a quiet calm settled over me. Yes, I knew exactly what I was facing. A most beautiful, kind-hearted woman. And a renowned, ruthless divorce lawyer. But this battle, I would fight it to the very end. The divorce was inevitable. But Ben and the money, they were mine. And more than that, I would make sure these two soulmates stayed tied together for the rest of their miserable lives. Even in death, they wouldn't be able to break free. I rejected Liam's divorce agreement outright. As a seasoned divorce attorney, he would never want his own divorce case to go to court. That would mean he had failed to negotiate, failed to take control, an embarrassment to his professional reputation. I wasn't in a hurry. Well, maybe I was. But definitely not as much as they were. In Liam's eyes, Margaret was this untouchable, virtuous figure. If she made any real advances before they were officially together, that perfect, self-sacrificing image would be tarnished. So she had to play her part, hesitant but yielding, reluctant but ultimately moved. And at the right moments she had to step forward as the voice of morality and virtue. As for Liam, he definitely wouldn't risk doing anything that could legally paint him as the guilty party during such a crucial time. Which meant the two of them could do nothing but wait. The most he could do was steal moments with her under the guise of his night runs, stopping by her little stand for a hot dog and a whispered conversation. I cradled my warm cup of tea, watching the snowflakes drift past my window. The doctor had warned me, us patients needed to stay warm and avoid red meat, as it could accelerate the disease's progression. And yet, every night, Liam stopped by Margaret's stand. Sometimes he ate one. Sometimes two. After a week of living at his office, he came back. I was sorting through old belongings when he walked in, his face cold and silent as he headed straight for the bedroom. Minutes later he emerged, dragging a suitcase behind him. He glanced at me before speaking in an icy tone. I was planning to leave the house to you. But given your attitude, I see no reason to be generous. Legally, our main shared asset is this house. The bank account is frozen. So, do you plan to sell it and split the money? Or will you be paying me my half directly? I tossed an old photo album into the box and let out a short laugh. What is wrong? Margaret got her eye on this place. Liam scoffed. Not everyone is as obsessed with money as you are. Margaret has never once asked me for anything. Don't insult her. Then something caught his eye. His brows furrowed as he stepped forward and picked up the photo album from the box. What are you doing? Throwing out trash, I replied calmly. He started to snap. But then his anger stalled. Because he recognized this album. It was filled with our college memories. The ones he had taken, the ones from when we first met, from when we fell in love. I used to keep it locked in a safe, saying we would cherish it when we were old. Now, I plucked it from his hands and tossed it aside without a second glance. The only sound in the room was the buzz of his phone vibrating. Still here. I glanced at the clock. Isn't it time for your night run? His expression darkened. He stood there for a moment, silent, before turning away. Hiding Ben from me one work. He threw over his shoulder. He's my son. He belongs with me. I won't give him up. Then he walked out the door. Half an hour later I stood up, dusted my hands off and let out a deep breath. Everything that had ever belonged to him, everything that had once meant something to us, was packed up and ready for the dumpster. It was strange. For something I had once treasured, our entire history together barely took up a single box. Just as I was about to throw it all out, my phone rang. A young man's voice came through the receiver. This is Evan. You were looking for me. I sat across from the young man, watching as he lazily chewed his gum. Purple hair, a lip ring and a defiant stare. He had the air of someone who thought the world owed him nothing and he owed it even less. But if you looked closer, he was wearing a thin hoodie in the middle of winter. The cuffs were frayed, the zipper had been clumsily stitched together with black thread, likely by his own hand. I got straight to the point. Yuri Evan? Margaret's stepson. He barely lifted his eyelids to look at me. Saying nothing. I pulled out a stack of cash and placed it on the table. My husband wants a divorce because of her. I need your help. Deal. He snatched up the money in one smooth motion. His immediate agreement caught me off guard. You don't even need to ask for details? You believe me just like that? Why wouldn't I? He muttered, still chewing his gum, completely indifferent. I mean, she raised you. Oh, please. Evan spat out his gum, his expression twisting with mockery. Raised me. More like she relished playing the role of the selfless saint in front of everyone else. I studied him carefully and pulled out another stack of bills. Without hesitation he swept that up too, then continued. I started learning piano at 4. My dad saved up every cent he could for my lessons. One day she donated all of it to the Red Cross. When the reporters came, she told them, other kids can even afford food. I should help the ones who truly need it. You know how my dad died? Bed sores. Infections. She took care of him. But only enough to look like she was taking care of him. So yeah, I am not surprised your husband got sucked in. She always manages to hook a few suckers. But someone as rich as your husband? That's a first. As he stood to leave, he clutched the money tightly in his fist and asked, "So all I have to do is make her push your husband to divorce you? That is it." I nodded. That is it. Done. Divorce alone wasn't enough. It had to happen on my terms. So I planned for both angles. The next day, as snowflakes drifted gently through the air, I returned to Margaret's hot dogs. Margaret was on her knees in the snow, tying the shoelaces of an elderly man with a cane. Passers-by cooed with admiration. Any man lucky enough to marry you must have done something right in his past lives. Margaret stood up, her face tinged with embarrassed humility. Oh, come on now. A woman like me? Who would even want me? Then she turned and locked eyes with me. Her face paled instantly. Tightening her lips, she marched over, tilting her chin up in defiance. Mr. Martin warned me, if you lay a hand on me, he'll make sure you pay for it. I cast my gaze downward briefly before looking up again, my face contorted with barely contained rage. Margaret, what was that text supposed to mean? Are you and my husband together now? Do you think I want to ruin you if you try to take what is mine? Margaret studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled. A slow, knowing smile as if she had been expecting this. Shaking her head, she sighed softly. You know, I always thought you were so elegant, so untouchable. But now that I see you up close, you no different from every other bitter, desperate wife throwing a tantrum. She gazed at me with warmth, with pity. We see the world through the lens of our own hearts. Yes, I accepted him. Because when a man places his heart so tenderly in your hands, what woman wouldn't be moved? Mr. Martin is an exceptional man. He carries immense pressure, yet he gets no warmth at home. You never appreciated him. But don't mistake me for someone like you. I may have accepted his feelings, but I would never cross that line while he still has a wife. I am who I am. If he comes, I'm here. If he doesn't, I'm still here. That's all there is to it. I scoffed, my voice sharp and biting. Oh please. Drop the act. You're after his money and we both know it. Otherwise, why would he be fighting me for assets in this divorce? She gave me an amused smile, shaking her head as if I were a foolish child. Everyone knows money is the one thing I care about least. If I wanted wealth, I could be married into it a dozen times over these past 13 years. The only thing that moves me, she placed a hand over her chest, is sincerity. My laughter was cold, dripping with mockery. Oh really? Then why hasn't he divorced me yet? If he truly loved you, he wouldn't be hesitating. The only explanation is, money matters more to him than you do. Her serene, saintly expression faltered ever so slightly. I pressed forward. If he truly loves you, let him leave with nothing. If he is willing to walk away penniless, then I'll believe he is sincere. Margaret's jaw tightened, her lips pressing together as she took in my words. A long, tense silence. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "And if he does?" I spread my arms, raising my voice dramatically for the watching crowd. "Then I'll personally attend your wedding and bring you a gift. I'll make sure everyone knows." I leaned in, my voice lowering to a taunting whisper. Even his ex-wife was moved by your great love story. A flicker of something sharp, something calculating, sparked in her eyes. And I knew I had her. The city had been buried under heavy snowfall for days, bringing traffic to a standstill. Margaret's hot dog stand had temporarily shut down. But two people caught up in the throes of passion wouldn't let a little inconvenience stop them. Every night after work, Liam braved the bitter cold and trudged through the snow for half an hour just to see Margaret. And somehow the effort, the difficulty, the struggle, only made their meetings feel more precious, more intense. Liam sat at her dining table while Margaret busied herself, tending only to him. They would share stolen glances, lingering smiles, the very picture of warmth, intimacy. Home. I saw it all. Through the camera. A few days ago, Evan had sent me a photo of a corner in Margaret's home. I asked him what it was. "I installed a camera," he replied impatiently. "It's my dad's house, I can do whatever I want." I thought for a moment. then agreed. Liam was always calculating, always 2 steps ahead. Except with Margaret. With her, all his logic, all his strategy went up in flames. If I wanted to control the pace of this game, I needed to understand him. And what better way to do that than to use his own tactics against him? One evening, just as Liam and Margaret sat across from each other, fingers intertwined, eyes locked in unspoken yearning, Evan burst through the door. His brows furrowed. "So you re my mama's lover." Both of them turned pale. Margaret rushed to explain, her voice soft and pleading. Liam straightened, his tone measured as he insisted he was merely a dinner guest. Evan let out a dry, mocking laugh. "Wow. You willing to trek through this weather just for a meal? And here I thought the neighbors were making stuff up." Then narrowing his eyes, he studied Liam. "Who are you, anyway?" Liam's face darkened. "I am just a friend of your mother's." "Are you married?" Liam stiffened. His face went from dark to pale. "I'm getting divorced soon, so, damn." Evan yelled. "So you are cheating on your wife with my mom? Get the hell out. What kind of scumbag seduces a widow?" He lunged forward as if ready to throw a punch. Margaret shrieked, grabbing his arm in a panic. The front door was wide open. Neighbors had gathered, watching the spectacle unfold. "Margaret, don't let yourself be fooled," someone called out. "Nowadays con men know how to act. Remember that guy a few years ago? The one you thought was just a generous donor? His wife showed up and exposed him for the liar he was." Margaret forced a smile, hurrying to explain that Liam was just a friend, that Evan had misunderstood. After that night, Liam stopped visiting daily. Even when he did come, it was secretive, hurried. The two of them grew more desperate, more lovesick, gazing at each other like star-crossed lovers torn apart by fate. Meanwhile, I sent Liam a revised divorce agreement. A few hours later, his response came in, "Not happening." Then one night, I watched through the camera as Margaret turned to Liam, her eyes glistening. "I am leaving this city." Liam froze. "What? Why?" Margaret lowered her gaze. "Evan's grown up now. It's not appropriate for us to keep living together. This city isn't my home. I have nowhere to stay. My aunt arranged a marriage for me back in my hometown. He a widower, a little older, but for someone like me I don't really have a choice. No." Liam's voice snapped like a whip. "A man like that good enough for you." Margaret bit her lip. "But you have a family." "Mr. Martin. I refuse to be a homewrecker. Let's just end this. Maybe we were never meant to be." Liam's expression darkened. "Margaret, wait for me. You know I want to let you be a mistress. The divorce will happen. But you don't understand, if I rush things, I'll lose too much. I just need time." Margaret abruptly stood up, her voice trembling. "You're a divorce lawyer. How can you not even get your own divorce? You make millions a year. Why does the money even matter? I don't care about your legal games. I don't care about money. I only care about love. But if that is not your priority, then leave. You don't deserve my love." Hours later, a message from Liam appeared on my phone. "You can keep the house. I'll take the money and Ben." I replied, "I want all of it." Liam's response was instant. "Don't push your luck." I smirked as I typed, "Then we wait." Liam didn't return to Margaret's house for days. Then finally one night he showed up. Margaret had just stepped out of the shower, her damp hair cascading over her shoulders. She wore a delicate, almost sheer nightgown, her face carefully arranged in cold indifference as she poured Liam a drink. She refused to speak to him. But she moved deliberately, leaning forward just enough, bending just slightly lower than necessary. Liam's gaze was locked on her, helplessly enthralled. At one point he reached for her hand, she recoiled as if burned. "What do you take me for?" she gasped, her voice shaking with indignation. "Mr. Martin, this is the last time you will ever see me. I'm leaving next month. Don't come here again." That night, Liam sat in silence for a long time. And then, another message from him arrived. "The house and money are yours. Ben stays with me." I hesitated for a moment before replying. Ben should decide for himself. Liam's response was swift. "Fine. Your words. Don't go back on them." I stared out the window at the sky, now crystal clear after the storm. A strange tightness settled in my chest. I wasn't entirely confident about Ben's choice. At 3 he had a photographic memory. At 5 he started learning chess. By 7 he had earned the title of prodigy. He had always been different from other children, never throwing tantrums, never seeking comfort. Though I cared for his daily needs, he was never particularly attached to me. As a psychology professor, I had looked up cases similar to his. Children with highly developed cognitive functions often lagged behind in emotional needs and expression. To Ben, relationships seemed transactional. Me, Liam, even Lucy, the housekeeper who had cared for him since infancy, were all just constants in his world, neither particularly important nor particularly irrelevant. Even after I placed him with a trusted friend each time I visited, he barely acknowledged me. His entire focus on the chessboard. The day of his competition, I dropped him off and left for a brief meeting at my university. By the time I returned, Ben had won in record time and was being interviewed. Liam and his mother were there too. His mother was beaming, holding Ben's hand like he was the greatest treasure in the world. Liam, meanwhile, spoke confidently to the cameras. His legal career had skyrocketed years ago thanks to a high-profile celebrity divorce case. The client had recognized him not just for his skills, but because he was the prodigy his father. That connection had built his reputation, drawing in wealthy clients who wanted the same level of precision and calculation in their own cases. Ben wasn't just his son. He was an asset. The interview wrapped up, and Liam leaned toward his mother, giving her a quiet instruction before walking toward me. Laura, I've already given you the house and the money. That amount might mean a lot to you, but to me it's just a salary. Ben, on the other hand, he belongs with me. He'll be better off. I clenched my teeth but forced a smile. Did Ben tell you he chose you? Liam let out a sharp scoff and shifted slightly, revealing the sight of Ben leading his grandmother to the car. Then he sneered. Do you really need him to say it out loud? My body went rigid. My nails dug into my palm. Then the car door swung open. Ben stepped out, his backpack slung over one shoulder. With measured steps, he walked toward me, looking up with his steady, unwavering gaze. Mom. I just went to Dad's car to grab my backpack. You were late. I waited for you a long time. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. I am sorry, sweetheart. I didn't expect you to win so quickly. Behind me, Liam's expression twisted in fury. His voice dropped to a sharp whisper. Then get back in the car. I've arranged for the best professional chess trainers for you. Ben didn't even glance at him. But you re-divorcing Mom, right? That means I can go with you and Grandma. Then without hesitation he reached for my trembling hand. Let us go. I need to rest for tomorrow's match. I tilted my head back slightly, blinking away the sting behind my eyes. All right, baby. Liam stood frozen in place, his face a storm of disbelief. In the car, I fought to keep my voice light as I asked, Ben, do you really understand what it means for your parents to get divorced? From the back seat, he answered in his soft but steady voice. Yes. I hesitated. And, does it make you sad? My teacher says you should never mourn the empty spaces lost on a chessboard. My vision blurred instantly. I had always assumed he didn't understand love. That he didn't feel things like other children did. I had been wrong. His silence had never meant indifference. He simply saved his energy for the moves that mattered. He was always watching, calculating, choosing when to act. And when the board shifted, he knew where he belonged. My son Ben. A natural-born master. When Margaret, clad once again in a sheer nightgown, flung herself into Liam's arms, her eyes brimming with tears, he finally lost control. His restraint, months of it, snapped. He tore the flimsy fabric apart, his grip almost violent as he carried her, pliant and trembling, into the bedroom. I closed the surveillance feed. Evan, however, wasn't done. Your husband has been in that room for a full day and night. Want me to bust in and catch them in the act? No need. Seriously, this is your chance to humiliate them. You're just gonna let them ride off into the sunset? You don't get it. They have to be together. That's the only way I win. 2 days later, Liam and I went to the courthouse to finalize our divorce. The house, the money, and our son, all mine. He walked away with nothing. And yet he looked radiant. Of course he did. He had spent months denying himself. Now, having finally indulged, he was walking out of this as a man reborn. As we stepped outside the courthouse, he cast me a cold, disdainful glance. Laura, do you really think you've won? Next year my firm is expanding. We're bringing in new partners, doubling our size. My earnings will skyrocket, meaning the money you fought so hard to take from me? Not even worth a year of my income. And Ben? He is young now, but one day he'll realize who can truly provide for him. You think you can keep him from me forever? Then just as he finished, his knee buckled. He collapsed onto the pavement. A few passers-by turned to stare as he scrambled back to his feet, confusion flickering across his face as he looked down at his own legs. I watched him in silence. Then I smiled. Congratulations. That is, if you live long enough to enjoy it. His brows knit together. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but I had already turned and walked away. A few weeks later, Evan took his revenge. In the middle of one of their earth-shattering bedroom sessions, he barged in with a group of friends, camera flashing. Liam was caught completely off guard, half-dressed, completely exposed. Evan raised hell, snapping photos and shouting obscenities. Liam had no choice but to hand over the last $300,000 of his savings to keep them quiet. Margaret, weeping, told him they had to get married immediately. Not just a quiet wedding. No, it had to be grand. People will talk. Liam, I can have my reputation destroyed. We must do this right. With no other option, Liam put up his firm's equity as collateral and took out a loan. Part of the money went toward buying Margaret a small house. The rest? A lavish wedding. The wedding of the year. The day before the ceremony, Margaret sent me a message. Laura, does our bet still stand? The smugness practically oozed from her words. I replied, of course. The morning of the wedding, the local papers ran a headline. Renowned divorce lawyer walks away with nothing. All for love. It sparked endless discussions. I overheard the conversations myself. That the woman who was once the most beautiful, strongest woman? She finally overcame her struggles and found true love. Exactly. And they did things the right way. He left his marriage first before pursuing her. There's nothing to criticize. Still, the ex-wife must feel a bit bitter, right? Bitter? Are you kidding? If I were her, I'd be thrilled. She got the house, the money. And she got rid of a man who didn't love her anymore. Sounds like a win to me. Honestly, if a divorce attorney willingly gave up everything for love, what else could it be? And so, when Margaret, standing under the golden glow of the chandeliers, wiped away her tears and spoke those fateful words, if you just hold on, everything will get better. Thunderous applause erupted. Every guest, every spectator. Everyone rejoiced in their pure and noble love story. Including me. 6 months later. I was driving Ben to a chess tournament when we got stuck in traffic near the hospital. That is when I saw them. Liam and Margaret sat on the edge of a flower bed by the road, clutching medical report envelopes in their hands, their faces blank with shock. Suddenly, Margaret shot to her feet, shrieking, "The results are the same. No mistake. Why is my life so miserable?" Then wailing, she turned and ran. Liam didn't move. Didn't even lift his head. He just sat there, staring at the ground beneath his feet, as if the earth itself had betrayed him. Moments later, Evan appeared. He stormed over, grabbed Liam by the collar and threw a punch. Liam crumpled to the ground without resistance. "Didn't you promise me 10 grand a month? You're 2 months behind. Are you trying to make me release those pictures and videos?" Evan roared. Liam slowly pushed himself up, wiping the blood from his mouth. His voice was low, almost detached. "I don't have money anymore. Do whatever you want." Evan's eyes narrowed. "No money? You're the boss. You get profit shares. Who the hell are you trying to fool?" Liam tilted his head back, gazing at the sky with eerie calm. "I'm sick. Buzz. The moment my partners found out, they pulled their investments. The value of my remaining shares barely covers my debts. I can't work anymore. I have no income." Evan stared at him in disbelief. "You telling me you completely broke?" Liam let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "If I were healthy, this wouldn't even be a problem." But he didn't finish his sentence. Instead, a single tear slipped down his face. At that moment, the backseat window of my car rolled down. I turned my head. Ben was staring out at the scene. Then his voice rang out, "Dad." Liam flinched. He turned, his body trembling, his expression crumbling into something raw and desperate. Tears streamed down his face as he choked out, "Ben, Geek. I miss you both so much." Ben continued watching him for a moment. Then with complete neutrality he said, "Dad, your collar." Liam blinked, wiping at his tears in confusion. "What?" "There's a huge bird poop on it." Ben pressed the window back up. "Outside." Liam stood frozen, his face a portrait of devastation, helplessness, and utter, complete despair. The past was finally behind me. Liam's downfall had unfolded just as I expected, step by step, consequence by consequence. I had nothing left to feel for him. No anger, no pity. Just the quiet understanding that life had merely given him back what he had sown. As for Margaret, well, she had gotten what she wanted. And lost it just as quickly. I never sought out what happened to them after that. Some people are meant to fade into the background of your life. No longer worthy of a second thought. What mattered now was me. And Ben. Months passed. I sold the house, the one that once symbolized the life I had built with Liam. A life that, in the end, had been nothing more than an illusion. I used the money to move to a new city, one by the coast, where the air smelled of salt and freedom. Ben adapted effortlessly. He was after all a strategist. Change never fazed him. It simply meant recalculating the next move. He thrived in his competitions, steadily climbing the ranks, his talent undeniable. But more importantly, for the first time, I saw joy in him. Not just in his wins but in small everyday moments. Chasing waves at the beach, eating ice cream too fast and getting brain freeze, laughing at a stray cat that stubbornly followed us home. Me. I rediscovered myself. I went back to teaching, this time at a smaller university where students weren't just chasing grades but truly curious about the world. I found fulfillment in my work, in conversations that didn't revolve around survival but about growth, ambition, and dreams. One evening as we walked along the boardwalk, Ben looked up at me and said, "Mom, I think you're happier now." I smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle in my heart. "I am, sweetheart." Because for the first time in a long time, I was truly free.